Welcome to Buckets, coming to you from the Tommy John's home studios. This is your future episode with the Future Jays, Jim Turvey and Joe Dellera, as well as your best bets episode for Monday, November 18th in the association. On today's show, we're going to talk about Defensive Player of the Year. We're going to talk about Most Improved. We're going to talk about NBA Cup MVP, as well as some NBA Cup futures, as Cup play does resume again on Tuesday. And we'll give you best bets for the Monday slate. Everything we talk about can be found in the award-winning Action Network app. Best way for you to track your picks. I've said that a million times. We have a new account on there called the Parlay Express, choo-choo, and it has been absolutely steaming to roll out. It's a bunch of basically long shot fun plays. Like, these are our bets that we're all like, hey, these are not full unit plays, but we had a great Sunday hitting them. I think a bunch of different sports have one. I grabbed one. Actually, I nailed one on the Suns-Wolves game, thanks to a wild ending for the Minnesota Timberwolves. That was great. So make sure to check out the Parlay Express in the Action Network app for some fun plays for you. Also go to youtube.com/the Action Network. Rate, review, and subscribe on podcasts, and give us that like and subscribe on youtube.com/the Action Network. Okay, I'm joined by Jim Turvey. He's at Turvey Bets from Roto Grinders. And Joe Dellera. He's at Joe Dellera from the Action Network. Let's start here, guys. Let's talk about Most Improved Player. So, the overriding theme of this episode will be, boy, are we smart, because all of our preseason bets, going back to when we did the Atlantic Division pod I did with Brandon back in like August. Brandon and I were like, RJ Barrett, Most Improved Player. He is now down to 1,100 in the market. That's a tasty CLV sandwich, which is probably not going to get home. The consensus play from everybody across our Action Network group, I don't know anybody in our group that wasn't in on Jalen Williams, Most Improved Player. And sure enough, Jalen's now second in those odds behind Jalen Johnson, another very popular pick amongst our group was Jalen Johnson, because he plays for that franchise that Jim Turvey thinks is somehow decent and worthy of our respect. Jalen Williams, though, tied with him at plus 550 at most spots. There's actually some 500s out there in the market. There's 1,600 left at Caesars for Jalen Johnson, and the longest you're going to get on Jalen Williams is plus 550. So, Jim, all right, we've got our Jalen Williams ticket. Are we good, or should we actually double down?
Well, I'll say this. If you don't have a Jalen Williams ticket, at plus 550, that still is a really good number for someone who I think should be shorter, to be honest, at this point. I think he should be the easy favorite. Jalen Johnson and Dyson Daniels are a couple of, my beloved Hawks there, but they are not going to fit the mold of being on a good enough team. Listen, this is me, reality check here. I love my Hawks. I love seeing them lose to the Portland Trailblazers today. I don't love seeing that at all. But those two guys, even if they were on a better team, they would kind of cannibalize each other from a teammate perspective, but they just really are not on a good enough team. They're not going to be in legitimate all-star consideration. Jalen Williams, on the other hand, he was already looking at like a decent prospect for this award. And then when Chet went out, which is a bummer for the Thunder as a whole, his numbers have really popped since then. So his usage, which was already, improved from last season, is even higher. He now has improved on his points, his rebounds, assists, and he has a lot of room. We talked about this the last time we talked about MIP. His shooting numbers can still go up even further. So to me, this is, you can double down a little bit if you want. I don't think there's a need to like smash it if you already got it at some of the really good numbers we gave this offseason. But to me, this is not chasing if you grab this number still at plus 550. I think this number should be honestly around like plus 300, even this early in the season. I really do think that at this point, it's an injury that would kind of prevent him from having this award, because all the others that are in contention, there's a flaw in it. With RJ Barrett, it's the team isn't good enough. With the Hawks, the team isn't good enough. With some of the other names out there, they're like too young. I think Cade is maybe the only other name that you could kind of make the case for. Is the Pistons continue to kind of look pretty solid. Pistons Islands, Matt, we're looking good there. But Cade doesn't fit a whole lot of the other things. He's a little bit too young as well. So I like J-Dub. The other name that is a name that we had talked about for this award as well, that I don't mind adding a sprinkle on at this point, is Franz Wagner. He's out there at 30-1 right now. His numbers have really taken a leap since Paolo went out. And part of that has definitely been, I think he's more comfortable in the main creator role, and that will come to an end when Paolo comes back. but he's kind of stockpiling these stats right now that are going to make it so that he's going to jump by 3 or 4 points, a rebound, an assist. The shooting numbers for him have really turned around. I'm hoping that those are not an aspect of he shoots better when he is kind of the lead creator, and in fact, when Paolo comes back and he gets even better looks theoretically with more space with Paolo out there, that the shooting numbers actually continue to improve. And with Paolo's being out for the beginning of the season, if the Magic are going to have an all-star, I think Franz is actually the most likely guy to be that representative for the Magic at the all-star game. That we know that's kind of like a big check mark for this award. So Franz at 30-1. I really like Jalen Williams as the prohibitive favorite right now. Again, if you got that, you can add a little bit, but if you don't have it, I really like loading up on Jalen Williams still. And then Franz at 30-1 is a number I think is just a little bit too long. And with a bunch of names above him who I just really don't think are legitimate contenders, I could see Franz being a top 2, 3, 4. And if Jalen Williams rolls an ankle, he could really kind of be in the running for this award.
Jalen Williams, 27-5 this season, really good. In terms of the production numbers, obviously OKC playing great. He's also playing center now, with Hartenstein and Chet out, which is just like icing on the cake of like, look how versatile he is. 55% from the field, now up to 39% from 3-point range. Let's talk about J-Dub before we hit Franz again here, Joe. You're in agreement that J-Dub is the play right now.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the positional versatility, I think, is incredible. And the fact that, like, I looked at the standings, I was like, oh, like, maybe Oklahoma City, like, maybe they're struggling a little bit right now. They're still in first. It's insane. So, like, to me, you're going to have him. He's front and center. This is a team that's going to be talked about often. They play a very different style of basketball. And just having that flexibility where if he's able to really show, like, hey, I can play meaningful minutes at the 5, that dramatically changes what Oklahoma City can even do moving forward. So you're going to see him in different lineups, different rotations, used different ways. And his numbers are all going to pop even more. So, like, we talked about this maybe a month ago, not even a month ago, a couple weeks ago now, after the first 2 weeks of the season. And J-Dub went from, at the beginning of the season, he was like 14-1, went back to the number that we grabbed him at in the offseason at like 20 to 25-1. And we said, bet it. Like, this is crazy. It's been 2 weeks. Bet it. Look. And now look, like, the way the line moves is bonkers. So, like, I agree. I think that J-Dub is the guy that you want. And like Jim kind of mentioned with the Hawks pair, birds of a feather, they lose together. So that's what's going to happen here. Like, they're not, the Atlanta Hawks are just not a good basketball team. They're going to cannibalize each other. And at the end of the day, you have Bogdanovich and Hunter, who both have been hurt and they're not playing. When those guys come back, Atlanta's going to be in a whole different situation. I don't know what their minutes or rotation is going to be like, but even if they want to trade those guys, you have to play them. So that's going to cut into what Johnson and Dyson Daniels can even do. So, I really just think that this is Jalen Williams' award to. I think he should be the favorite right now. I agree with you, Jim.
Yeah, so that kind of leads into, Jim, I want to get your thoughts because I know that you're down on it too. Is there anything else about the reasons? Because, like, everyone's talking about the Great Barrier Thief right now. Jalen Johnson with averaging so many steals, great stats I've seen out there. Some really good work being done on Aaron Bullwinkle, who has a really good Substack. I was reading it today, kind of breaking down the historical markers for Dyson Daniels about how, like, only Oscar Robertson had done this. By the way, we do a lot of the not since Wilt. A lot of these numbers, the crazy stat lines, wind up being not since Dyson, or not since Dyson, not since Oscar Robertson.
Someday, not since Dyson Daniels.
Yeah, not since Dyson Daniels have you seen anybody have this many steals. So, Jim, is there any other reason why you think that maybe Dyson Daniels is overrated in this market, overpriced in this market, given that the market right now, he's as low as 8-1 at DraftKings. There's a 10-1 at Bet Rivers for Dyson Daniels. I think it's a great story. I think Dyson Daniels is the type of player that should win this award. He just hasn't been the type of player who actually has won this award.
So that's exactly what I was going to say. I don't want to be overly beholden to the rules that we kind of Brandon laid out so well, but he really misses on two big factors. As great as Dyson Daniels is, and I'm with you that I think if I were to vote for this award, I would actually vote for Dyson Daniels. He, like, legitimately is the most improved player to my eyes this year. but he's not on a winning team. And I don't think he's going to reach an all-star level. As much as I love Dyson Daniels, he's not going to reach that level this year. And those have been very, very useful tools to use to predict this award. Now, again, we're going to talk about DPOY and someone who might be breaking all of the rules of these things. But the reason we use these is not because it's 100%, this is a lock, it's going to happen, but they are more often than not the ways that this award has been voted on. So we want to use this history to guide us and say, who are some names we can pick off that, 80% of the time they are not going to be the ones to do it. Is it going to be 100% accurate? No. And you kind of have to use your judgment here and there. I think Dyson Daniels is a great story, but the fact that like both of you mentioned, there are names coming back into this rotation for the Hawks. They're going to eat into the minutes, but the points, especially for Dyson Daniels, he's a really big jump in points this season. I don't see him averaging 15 a game when all their rosters back. Now, maybe they don't stay healthy all season, but I between the fact that he doesn't fit a lot of the rules for this award and the fact that a couple of Hawks are coming back, I think I'm fine sitting out on Dyson Daniels right now.
I might grab the 10-1 at BetRivers, and the reason I might is that if the Hawks come to grips with the reality that Jim cannot, which is that this team is fundamentally broken on the inside, there's a really exciting young team here.
Yeah, there really is.
Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, Onyeka Okongwu, they should be looking to trade Bogdanovich. They should be looking to trade Trae Young. They should be looking to trade, honestly, DeAndre Hunter. They should be looking to move these guys and start fresh with, this is a really exciting young team who can actually defend worth a damn.
But then wouldn't that really hurt how bad the team is? Now, maybe you don't think so. Maybe you think the team's about the same, even with those guys shipped out the door. They would win a couple without Trae. Yeah. So, but that, I feel to me, that at least would signal to voters of oh, he's improving because they're kind of rebuilding this year.
So I think one of the key questions there is, okay, would Dyson on a team that misses the playoffs by 5 games or play in by 5 games, and they might still make the play in, let's be honest. Is that going to win if he gets it? Let's say that happened in short order. It's not going to be very clear. The Hawks won't give up the ghost, but if they did, let's say they did it tomorrow, they were just all right, we're transitioning, we're buying in on the young guys, right? If Dyson made an all-star team and Franz Wagner made an all-star team, which of those two guys is winning most? Let's say J-Dub's not in the conversation for whatever reason. Which of those two guys do you think wins between?
I think it comes down to if Franz keeps or improves the shooting numbers when Paolo comes back. Because I really do think that there isn't. I guess there are some guys who are more comfortable shooting as lead creators, but he should have way more space. And the numbers have been screaming for positive regression for a while as part of the case in the preseason of if Franz just has a mediocre 3-point shot, his points are going to jump by 2 or 3 a game. And he's a young player who we saw improvement, over the summer at some of the international ball level. He is one of the least sexy MIP bets. I do have to admit that. And Orlando is kind of an unsexy team at times. I get the hesitations to it, but I think the fact that the Franz is 30-1 and the Dyson Daniels is 10-1, I'm always going to be looking for that 30. If I think of them as somewhat comparable, the 30-1, 3 times the number, I'll go with Franz.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to poo-poo on Dyson Daniels' jump, right? In terms of the scoring or anything else, but I think that the jump between say wherever he was basically negligible in terms of his scoring to maybe let's call it 14 a game, right? The difference between that and then what Franz is doing to jump from 18 to say 24, I think is so much more significant. That's so much harder to do. Whereas it's because he's playing the same amount of minutes and he's increasing his his output by just increasing the raw efficiency or the usage, whatever. Whereas for Daniels, just he didn't play. There were just no minutes there. It's not that he wasn't good. It's just that he didn't play. So I think that it's a little bit different. Whereas one is just okay, this guy's got minutes, and then the other one's this guy can be the engine to an offense, even albeit kind of a bad offense, but it's not really the point. But he could be the engine to an offense. So I think that the jump when you're talking from say 10 to 15 or 8 to 15, it seems more significant because it's double, right? Or plus 30% or whatever. but the jump from like 19 to 22 or 23 or 24 is so much more significant because of like where it's coming from.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Let's move over to a reward that's the market is absolutely ridiculous for. This is your ridiculous market of the night. Yeah. DPOY, Defensive Player of the Year. Victor Wembanyama's odds have shortened.
It's insane.
Makes no sense.
He is now
insane
because of the Chet injury. He's now minus 200 at Bet Rivers. The shortest you can get, or longest you can get, rather, is minus 170 at FanDuel. Like we said, it was ridiculous when he was the favorite, and now he's an even shorter favorite. I want to run down this list of the top 5 guys, and I want to go top 6 rather, and I want to go over where they are in where their team is defensively. Okay, schedule adjusted and defensive rating. The San Antonio. As a primer, you got to be on a top 5 defense in order to win this award. Like you have to be on a top 5 defense to win this award. That's not me just going off of the historical data, though that backs it up as well. Literally talking to voters, I asked them what's the number one thing you look at, and the first thing they said was I instantly need to know how good of a defense they're on. Because like as you will hear me talk about a lot, it doesn't really fucking matter if you're a great defender on a team who's shitty on defense. Anthony Davis. Sorry. The Spurs are 14th right now in schedule adjusted defense. 14th in that category. And they have a mid-level defensive strength of schedule. Like they're 15th. It's totally like they are not just like playing hard teams. They're 14th in that category. Evan Mobley, who's 2nd. The Cavs are 8th. Okay. The Cavs might wind up as a top 5 defense. Willing to listen there. I think Jared Allen's more important, but fine. 3rd is Dyson Daniels because the Great Barrier Reef.
Are they like 6th? They're like right outside the top 5 in defense, right?
Yeah, just right. They're right there. A few more bounces go their way, and the 28th ranked Hawks.
They're so bad.
They're the 3rd worst defense in the NBA. And I get it. Like, the steals really do matter. I think that can be like a really compelling case for voters in like an exceptional sense. If you were to keep it up, which, spoiler alert, he's not going to because steals are really inconsistent. And eventually the scouting report gets out, which is, hey, don't be lazy with the ball around him.
Yeah.
Okay. Anthony Davis. That makes sense, right? Like, I bet this guy like a bunch because I know how much voters want to reward this guy. No matter how much I yell about his impact, I know how much they want to vote for him. And he's off to an incredible start to the season in terms of his stats. Yeah, so the Lakers are all the way down at 21st. They're 21st in defense. I'm the real DPOY because I dunked on Rudy one time. 21st in defense. So, no. Bam Adebayo, my guy. So I'll take the L on this one because I keep yelling about it. And right now, Brandon Anderson's annoying ass looks like a genius because Miami is 15th. They're just mediocre. They're mid on defensively, and Bam has been underwhelming offensively as well this season. So that's a no. So that's like the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the top 5 guys. Top 5 guys. None of them have a top defense. And then Jim Turvey, there's the 6th guy. And his name is Draymond Green.
It is indeed. It's very funny. You didn't tell me you were going to go through the top 5 players. What I did.
That's because I just decided to, Jim. Welcome to the show.
but what I find funny is I went through the top 8 teams. And why this year is so weird is because I'm going to go through the top 8 defenses that all have kind of a reasonable chance to land in that top 5. Okay. Number 1 is OKC. This was, to me, Chet's award until he got hurt. It was a number. I literally bet it plus 300. I was like, this is a short number, but it is the ticket. I bet it, and he got hurt the next day. You gotta love that. But this was Chet's award. But now there's not really a standout bet for OKC. 2nd, Orlando. You and I, Jalen Suggs, defenders till day we die. It's not happening. He's not winning
He's so good.
He's so
Why
good.
Why won't they understand how good my boy Suggs is?
Well, here we go, Matt. Here's our actual, true, beautiful baby boy. Number 3 is Houston. Tari Eason. Can we get a Tari Eason
Yeah.
long shot? No, we cannot get Tari Eason. Alperen Sengun, because remember, the big men win this award so much more often. So
Yeah.
Orlando, you're looking at, I mean, Goga is their current starting center. That's
Get
not
outta
happening.
town, dude.
Wendell Carter's hurt. There's not a big for Orlando that makes sense. For Houston, it's Sengun. That's not going to happen, even though the defensive metrics actually kind of like him this year. If you watch, you're not giving Sengun the award. Number 4, and actually, I'm going to pause 4 because 4 is going to be my best bet. So we'll come back to them. Number 5 is Golden State. Draymond, who you just mentioned, has a super intriguing case. I'm going to leave that to Joe. I think Joe's going to talk about that a little bit more, but I definitely think that that's an interesting one right there. Number 6 is Minnesota. Are we going to give it to Gobert again? I really don't think we are going to give it to Gobert again. Number 7 is Boston. There's some Derek White stuff out there. I think he kind of falls into the Jalen Suggs, Tari Eason camp of we're going to love him and his impact. He probably is one of the best defenders in the league. I just don't think it's going to happen. There is a really long number on him if you want to try that, but I don't think that's the best bet. And then 8 is Cleveland. And I do like Cleveland. And I like Mobley, but that number is the shortest of all of these kind of intriguing long shots. So I kind of ran through the list. It's a weird year, and that's why I'm a little bit scared. I keep putting money into this market as anyone other than Wemby, basically, because he breaks all of the rules. Unfortunately, this is kind of setting up as a year that breaks the rules. However, I think there is a guy who's actually really well positioned right now at a long number, and he fits a lot of these things. And this Brandon was on this name before the season, but the number is longer now. It's Jaren Jackson Jr. Now his blocks are way down. Some of the stock stuff isn't popping as much for him. So I could see that hurting his case, but Memphis has the number 4 defense with everyone in and out. All the stuff they've had to go through this season, they have the number 4 defense, and he fits the stereotypical really elite center of a defense, big man. He's versatile. The blocks, like I said, are down, but he has the reputation. I mean, he's literally won the award before. He's finished in the top 5. He's been all defense. He checks all of the boxes that we look for when we look for people in this award. I think at 40-1, that is a number that when I saw it today and I kind of ran through all these candidates, I was like, I think I have to add a position on Jaren Jackson Jr. This might be the year that Wemby breaks all the rules. He's going to do this a lot in his career where he shatters all previous norms and expectations. And maybe that's fine. I cannot fathom it being minus 200 right now. So I do think this is a market I want to bet into. And my favorite, I do like the Draymond look that Joe's going to talk through. My favorite of the whole bunch is Jaren Jackson Jr. at 40-1 right now, though.
Yeah, I think that you're pretty right with Jaren Jackson Jr. I think that he's excellent. He's young. You figure he's going to play. He was one of the few guys that actually played for Memphis really all of last season, right? So I do think he's going to get a couple more eyeballs this year. I will say, for me, I was looking at this and I was like, well, in a year where there's not really a real consensus spot. I mean, I know the conversation is obviously about Wemby and just how good he is. He's transcendent, whatever. We've already seen some of the other markets where he was consensus favorite. He's just not even really on the board anymore.
Yeah.
So for some reason, DPOY, I think he's a little bit sticky, but I think it's fake stickiness because Chet and him basically were even at a certain point. They were let's make it this way. And then it was just the two of them. And then there was a little bit of a gap between everybody else. Then Chet gets hurt and then he's back to being the favorite. I'm looking at this with Golden State, with Draymond Green, and the guy is always getting Defensive Player of the Year votes, just all the time. And, he did win one, I guess, was it almost 10 years ago now? But either way, he's still getting votes. He's still in the top. He was in the top 4 just a couple seasons ago. So could he be somebody on this really good Golden State team that is kind of repurposed itself as a defensive team around Curry, right? Where Curry's just well, I'm going to do everything on offense. Just keep me close. And I'll throw some dagger threes and whatever I got to do, hit you with the night celebration. Right. But for me, with Draymond, could this be a year where does the media like him enough at the end of the season say hey, you've been awesome for your whole career. How do you only have one? Let's give him another one. I don't think that that's super crazy, especially for a guy that everybody knows is an absolute warrior, for lack of a better word.
Boo.
Got multiple puns in here, right?
A lot of it is if you kind of dive into the metrics and you're trying to like figure out like what, I'm still very like on the fence about Golden State. A lot of the shooting stuff is like, ooh, I don't know about this. But on both sides of the ball, where it seems like there's outliers happening on both sides, the Warriors' defense is his 9.9 points worse with Draymond on the floor this season. So the impact side of that is flipped, and it's like, and I think Joe's kind of like, and I think he's right in that. One, they still have a 111 with him on court, and that's really good versus the starters. Two, that number will probably regress to at least even as the season goes on. And then three, while there will be a healthy number of nerds that vote on this that would look at the same numbers I do, a lot of people will be like, no, they're a top 5 defense and Draymond's the reason. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, this is one of the things I like to do, is I like to be like, well, okay, hang on. They're top 5 defense, Draymond's the reason. Is that actually true? Like, that's why I start looking at these data, because I'm always like, sometimes we think these things and that's not the case, and it's really interesting. I'm not going to bet it, but I do have a name, because this surprised me a little bit. Okay. So what I looked up was who leads the league in rebounds per game, plus steals per game, plus blocks per game. The good old counting stats that they used to award this on. That's why Marcus Camby won one when he was an absolutely atrocious defender. Marcus had the next 2 seasons, he was great, but the season that Marcus won it for Denver, he was atrocious defensively. This one's kind of funny because the person that leads the league in rebounds plus stocks is Nikola Jokic, because he leads the league in so many rebounds.
Yep.
So, and he's actually averaging 1 block and 1.7 steals per game.
I mean,
so
the metrics actually really like him too right now.
Yep.
It's really funny, actually.
If it wasn't for the fact that anyone who watches basketball would laugh that out of the room, it's a really interesting case. 2 is Wemby, because he's averaging 3.7 blocks per game, like one does.
Yeah.
Like a normal human person. Davis is 3rd, and that's why I continue to think, like, man, if the Lakers can just slide into 10th, I seriously think Davis can still win this.
Vanderbilt's coming back soon, so
like, I might have to bet Davis based off of that. But here's the kicker. Giannis is 4th in rebounds plus steals plus blocks per game.
Okay.
The Bucks might be below the Hawks right now in defense.
What if the Bucks trade him to Miami?
Guess what? No. The Milwaukee Bucks are 10th in schedule adjusted defense right now.
Oh,
no shit.
Carrying Dame.
No shit. They're struggling because of their offense.
Yeah.
They can't score. They're 14th on defense. The numbers are basically like Milwaukee's a lot better than they are. Here's the other one. So that's schedule adjusted because they face a lot of really good offenses, because they're getting a 0.6. They are the 5th toughest defensive SOS. So that means that when they start playing Detroit more, when they start playing, I'm trying to think of the bottom offenses, like these bottom tier offenses, Utah, Washington. No, those are offense. Sorry, that's offense. But Washington is bottom in offense. When they start playing more of the bottom offenses more, Portland, Detroit, Orlando, Charlotte again, when they play those teams more often, if the Bucks can pull out of this nosedive, then that means that all of a sudden, like if the Bucks turn this season around and they wind up with a 45 plus win season.
What is his number right now?
His number in the market, there is a 60-1 right now on Giannis.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely enticing. I will say, my one issue with Milwaukee is they are allowing opponents to shoot almost 40% from 3-point range, and that's almost something that Giannis has nothing to do with. And I don't know where those reinforcements come from. Like, unless they make a trade, and they have no real way to make a trade.
So I'm gonna counter you with this question, which is, so that's percentage, and that matters. I'm not saying it doesn't. So the Warriors, by the way, are allowing the lowest percentage league wide.
Also in frequency, they're 6th highest. They allow their opponents to shoot the 6th most threes in terms of frequency, and then they're allowing the 3rd highest percentage. just as
They're
like,
seventh on attempts
yeah,
per 100.
yeah.
So yeah, they gotta get that up, because that's the whole thing. Is like, if you allow a lot of threes, you're not gonna have a good defense over time.
Yeah.
So yeah, like look, the eye test says that like the Bucks are going down in flames and Giannis is getting traded. Like, there was already a Houston rumor that popped up on Sunday. I'm just saying.
Don't tease me with Houston. Don't tease me with Houston.
Maybe Tar Heels can win.
if we look at a top 10 defense right now, and rebounds per game plus steals per game plus blocks per game, the name that pops up is Giannis Antetokounmpo. And because I was actually going to make the joke of, I really think it's cool that we found 2 awards that Jim wasn't going to bet Karl Anthony Towns for. 5th on our list of rebounds plus steals plus blocks, Karl Anthony Towns.
Oh no!
Look, I'm going to tell you that restricted area stat
right now.
The restricted area stat is fake. That's a fake stat. Like, he had more blocks than that. Like he had more blocks than missed shots in that one stat. It was literally impossible. It couldn't have happened. Like,
so there's that. All right. That's DPOY. That's DPOY. I still think that there's probably like, I think this one is we got to wait a little bit longer for this one to kind of firm up. But I think the Derek White play is interesting. I think the Giannis play is interesting as a long shot.
Yeah,
I think we'll sprinkling some long shots. Don't like hammer these right now, but get yourself some of the portfolio. If Wemby busts our bank this year, he busts our bank, and you tip your cap.
Yeah, that's all you can really do. Let's talk about NBA Cup. Cup play returns on Tuesday. We're through 2 games. If we kind of look around the league and the standings, you can check them out at NBA.com. On the standings page, you can go to the Emirates NBA Cup standings. And Joe, talk to me about Group C. Because on Tuesday, the Cleveland Cavaliers are taking on the Boston Celtics. Celtics 0-1 after losing to the Hawks.
And one more time, who they lose to?
The Atlanta Hawks. And the Cavs are 1-0 with a plus 18-point differential. Massive game. Cavs still undefeated. Eastern Conference contenders. That's a huge game. But you think there's something to be found here for cup group value here in Group C?
Yeah, so I have 2 things that I like in this group. One is an MVP play, another one's a group play. But for the group play, I don't think it's crazy to still buy in a little bit on Boston. Boston is over, I think it's like plus 325 to win the group. And I understand, like, positionally, they're in terrible shape. But they're playing the one team that, like, they really have to beat. You have to beat Cleveland. They should have beaten Atlanta, but that's a totally different problem, right? But you have to beat Cleveland. The rest of the group is the Hawks, the Wizards, and the Bulls. So Boston's remaining games are against Washington and Chicago. And those are games that they should be at minimum probably double-digit favorites in both of those games. So you're basically looking at this scenario and saying, okay, well, if they beat Cleveland and they own the tiebreaker against Cleveland, like in terms of like the head-to-head play, Atlanta has to play Cleveland still. Atlanta, we were shocked they beat Boston. So, like, Atlanta's going to be a dog to Cleveland, a pretty significant dog, I would imagine. And they might even just lose to Chicago. So, like, I think that the group is pretty open here. And Boston, I'm assuming they're at home. I'm assuming they're going to be like a 2-3 point favorite against Cleveland, just based on the title, based on home court, based on like the cup, like whatever. That's kind of what I would guess. I know, Matt, I think you have some different like numbers based on your modeling, but which I think makes this even more interesting. But from that perspective, like we're looking at Boston being favored probably by a couple points and then double digits twice. And you're giving me like over 3-1. I think there's a little bit of value there on Boston still in this group, even though they're positionally in kind of like a bad spot.
Jim, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I do like it. I would be funny if we ran back. I wish the number was as long as last year's Boston group winner that we gave out. I think I was like 14-1 last year.
Crazy.
But I do. I agree. I think that Cleveland. I've been as impressed and all over Cleveland as anyone out there. But I do think that Boston, rightfully should be slightly favored when these two teams match up on Tuesday. And then the point differential thing, I mean, that, like Joe said, that can flip very quickly with some of the matchups they have left. Atlanta, listen, again, I love Atlanta, absolutely love them, but yeah, they could very easily lose to Chicago, like very, very easily, and I would not pick them to beat Cleveland. So I was surprised you said this number was out there at plus 325. That does seem like it's maybe an overreaction to just straight looking at the standings instead of kind of thinking about who's got what and is it really all that big a hill to climb for Boston, which it really doesn't feel like it is.
Yeah, and Boston has, outside of an overtime loss, which is a 0, they give you the 0 point differential. They lost by 1. Like, they're in like the literal best scenario that you could be with 1 loss.
Yeah,
like they're basically at a nothing right now. Like, they just have to win out, which, like, okay, it's not crazy. It's Boston.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, you have a MVP play on this group as well.
Yeah, so then this is going to obviously go like directly opposite of everything I just said. And Trae Young is 110 to 1 to be the Cup MVP. I'm not saying that Atlanta's going to win. I'm not even saying they're going to beat Chicago. So
how is this shit contagious? Does it just is a virus that just spreads on this podcast?
The number is just too long.
Tempting you guys just slowly over the course of the year. By the end of the year, Matt, you're gonna have a Dyson Daniels face tattoo.
The number is just too long though, because look, they have to play Chicago, they have to play Cleveland, but they have their own path into getting into the next round. They have a plus 13 point differential, which is like, okay, it's not anything special right now, but they control their own destiny. And 110 to 1, I think, is far too long. Chicago, I just don't think is a particularly good team. And even against Cleveland, they're at least at home against Cleveland. They're playing in Atlanta. So I do think that that's like that's probably a little bit helpful to not have to go on the road to go play Cleveland. And they'll also be aware of what the situation is. Plus, Cleveland still has to play Boston. So, like, there's this scenario where you could have multiple teams. Like, the worst Atlanta could be is 2-2. But it's entirely possible that you have a situation where there's a couple teams that are 3-1, and you're in this funky tiebreaker scenario where Cleveland beats Atlanta, Atlanta beats Boston, Boston beats Cleveland, and then it goes down further down in terms of the tiebreaker. So I just think that there's multiple paths for Atlanta to get through, and then once you get through, there's just not a lot of games left. So there's a decent opportunity here for Atlanta, who is in a good position right now. That 110 to 1, I think, is just too long for the guy that's definitely, like, I would say, the engine of this team. As good as Jalen Johnson is, as good as Dyson Daniels is, I would be shocked if this went somewhere else, because Atlanta's not winning these games if Trae Young isn't throwing down like 30 points and 12 assists.
No. No. Will not do this.
That's like, you can't make me do it today.
You can't make me do it. Cannot make me. I don't care how compelling your case is.
Put it on the parlay.
I have one real quickly that I want to talk about. At DK, you can get qualified for the semifinals. So this is just like by hook or by crook. The Nets are 35 to 1. Okay. Here's the cap. This is entirely based off of one stat. So they are in all the groups on DraftKings. They're in Group A. They lost to the Knicks. Okay, the Knicks are minus 280 to win the group. Makes sense. Totally get it. They already lost to the Knicks. They're heads up. Very, very difficult, right? The key here is Orlando. Okay. I thought Charlotte might have been the team to kind of sneak out of this group and bet them, and that does not look like the case. But I'm now pivoting to Brooklyn, and the reason is specifically because of this. Orlando leads their group right now with a plus 37. They beat the Charlotte Hornets and the Philadelphia 76ers. They won those two games at home. This season, the home team in Magic games, whether the Magic are at home or they're on the road, have won 13 of the 14 games.
You
This
shared
goes
this
back
stat
to
earlier. It's crazy.
It's so
It's
bizarre.
crazy. If you go back to last season, if you go back to, this is all-star of last year, okay, including the playoff games for the Magic. The home team is 37-11 when the Magic play. That's not just the Magic. That's the Magic or their opponent if they're at home facing the Magic. Since April 1st, 26-2. They can't win on the road. They can't lose at home. The Magic have just played both of their home games in the NBA Cup. They're on the road at Brooklyn, at New York. Okay, so like good spot here for the Knicks. Don't mind it if you want to take this and be like, Matt, why don't I just play the Knicks at minus 280 because they're going to beat the Magic at home and they've already beaten the Knicks. You could do that. You could do the sensible thing. Or you can play the Brooklyn Nets to make it out because, again, look at kind of this pathway. The Cavs play Boston, who lost to Atlanta, so there's a very good chance that they wind up canceling each other out for a wild card. The Bucks, who we know are inconsistent, they have this big lead because they beat Toronto. They face Indiana, Miami, and Detroit. Those are three very losable games for where the Bucks are at right now.
Yeah.
Okay. The Miami Heat are 1-1. They lost to Detroit on a heartbreaker. Lost it, and they beat Indiana, and then they lost again tonight to them. They face Milwaukee and Toronto. The Heat are in a pretty good spot, no lie. Don't mind that. Like, they're in a pretty good spot here. Miami's really inconsistent, though, and there's also two spots we can kind of grab here for that final wild, or another spot we can grab for that final wild card spot. The question here is just like, yeah, okay, but one of Cavs and Boston is likely to get out. Totally agree. Don't disagree there. But with that game on Tuesday being ahead of this, I do think at 35-1, it's at least interesting to think about. So I'm gonna think about it between now and Tuesday, and I'm considering it.
I'm definitely vaguely intrigued by that. Actually, I when you said the number, I was like, I don't know how Matt's gonna get me there, but I after you walk through it, I'm intrigued. I think my biggest hesitation is they don't seem like a team that can blow anybody out, and I feel like you need that point differential. Yeah. But again, at 35-1, I am intrigued after you walk through it.
Yeah. Just gotta make it. Just gotta make it there. By hook or by crook.
I have a cup MVP before we go to best bets, actually.
Yeah, I have one more too.
Yep. Okay, sweet. So I the one I said last week, I still like Anthony Davis. You can still get it plus 2,700. I still really like that one. The Thunder still are going to be without Chet when the Lakers host them. I think that's really big. The rest of their group is a little bit banged up as well. Really like that number. The other one, if you want to go even longer, Alperen Şengün plus 4,700. I don't think people realize how well the Rockets are playing right now. They have the fifth best adjusted really net rating right now. I've talked about them to win the group at plus 340 last week. That already looks like a pretty good bet. Now, if we get what's like the best player on the team, they have Jalen Green at shorter odds, and maybe you can make the case that if Houston's going on a run, they need like a really hot Jalen Green. I don't really think they do is the thing. I think this Rockets team is like genuinely one of the better teams in the league right now. And Şengün's clearly their best player. He's going to put up the most, PRA combined. I think, he has kind of the crown of the best player on that Rockets team. I actually, the first name that came to mind was Fred VanVleet. I didn't realize how few points he's averaging this year. I do think he has kind of that experience and has burned you, Matt, in a playoff setting before. So I don't want to trigger too many terrible memories for you here.
Still mad about it. It's been 6 years. I'm still mad about it.
For the Rockets to be in the position they are in their group and to be as good as they are, I think that's the part that's really getting slept on. Like, I think some of these teams can get out, and then it's like, can they really win like 3 tough games? I think the Rockets definitely could win 3 tough games. So Şengün, 47-1. I really like that as another long shot to sprinkle.
Yeah, and if you need another one, Jim, because I do like these center bets for MVPs, but Karl Anthony Towns is still 75-1 to win the Cup
crazy.
MVP.
That, like, I know
it's insane. It is absolutely insane. Like, I get that he missed the game against Brooklyn. Nobody is going to even remember that he missed that game against Brooklyn. Nobody's going to care at all.
Joe,
Like,
we
not
not
for a
this to come
second.
from someone other than you, but it is such a good pick.
It is an
Do you
insane number.
You want Karl Anthony Towns to win a major award for winning.
But Matt,
Like,
here's
are
the
you
thing.
gonna
because
feel
it's
good?
the in-season tournament.
This is the most.
Are you
the
gonna
best
feel
way-
good going in? Are you gonna feel good going into the semifinals with a Towns ticket?
Yes,
Hell
I'd feel
yeah.
great.
It's a fraudulent.
That would feel
It's a
great.
fraudulent tournament. It's a fraudulent award for a fraudulent.
How dare
player.
you? How dare you besmirch the cup?
The
I will
Emirates Cup.
celebrate this like a championship if the Knicks win.
You should. You should.
I'm gonna put a banner back here.
Mine's simple. Mine is very simple. Steph Curry is plus 900 at DraftKings.
Yeah.
He's shortest odds. He's a favorite at FanDuel. By the way, that's an important note here is Jalen Brunson's at 600 at DraftKings, and he's all the way at 10-1 at FanDuel.
Well, that's to Joe's point. If we can just circle back to that really quick, like Cat has been the better player all season, and like clearly the Knicks have like a fair amount of cup. Like people think that they can win the cup, and to have Cat
They're the favorite.
they're the favorite right now.
They're
And
the
Cat has
favorite.
been the best player for the Knicks this year. So that number is just crazy. I know Joe. We always rag on Joe for being a Knicks homer, but I'm 100% with you on that, Joe.
Also,
That's
it's not
be
just that he's a
Orlando.
Knicks homer.
We know they're gonna
It's
be
not
Orlando.
It's not just that it's not just that he's a Knicks homer. It's that when I told him last spring the Knicks were going to trade for Karl Anthony Towns, and he responded with something that I'm not going to share here, but it was Harry Carey. Like,
You know what happens? Sometimes we grow, we learn, and we learn to appreciate the finer things in life. And one of the finer things in life is Karl Anthony Towns' jump shot, and it's absolutely fantastic.
getting back to a serious, and Towns is good value. I love Steph here. You're gonna want look in cup play. The Warriors are 2-0. They're only a +8. I get it, but they're already 2-0 in cup play. They played Dallas and Memphis.
Yeah.
They play the shell of the Pelicans and then Denver, who can't get their stuff together and are just really like they're gonna be without Aaron Gordon. They're very banged up. Even in that last game, Aaron might be back, but like they're live to go 4-0 here. So all right, if we advance the Warriors to the semifinals, to the quarterfinals rather, you're gonna want Steph here.
Yeah.
You're gonna want this ticket. So at 9-1, I'm just like, you got to bet this.
Yeah,
you got to bet Steph Curry to win MVP because you're gonna feel good about Steph being the best player in any matchup that he gets into in the Western Conference outside of Denver. Like that's the only team where you would be like, all right, maybe I'd rather have Jokic.
I legit see no way on planet Earth that any other Warrior gets that either.
Right? No
way.
universe does he get it. All right, let's do best bets for Monday. Good episode here. Let's roll through them and shout them out. Jim Turvey, you'll go first. What are your best bets for Monday?
Yeah, Joe and I were bemoaning the fact that we don't really have props yet, so I'm going to give you two angles that are centered around players. Should I just give the bet now, or should I give the cap as well?
Just the bet.
Okay, Jakob Poeltl, points and rebounds over, and then a little combo, Dyson Daniels steals and De'Aaron Fox turnovers. Parlay those together.
Dyson Daniels. Okay, so the Great Barrier Reef and Swipa. I like it.
Yeah.
Great Barrier Thief. Got it. Joe Dellera, what's your best bet for Monday?
Joel Embiid under 24.5 points.
Okay. Just pure haterade. I like it. I'm going to go with Rockets Bucks over 219. That's going to be my best bet on this one. And I'm trying to think if I want to give this one out. No, I do not. I will stick with that one, and you'll have to wait for best bets tomorrow to see the rest of them. All right. Jim, let's go in reverse order. Hit me with the Fox turnovers and Dyson Daniels steals. I'm really interested in this SGP.
Yeah, this is something that, so I don't have turnovers in any of the states that I have been in, so they may sniff this out. This might be correlated correctly at the books, but check it out. Basically, the thought is the Kings are still going to be very shorthanded. They're going to be without Sabonis, most likely. He's doubtful. They're going to be without Monk, without DeRozan. So, and in this mold, they've actually been kind of fun. De'Aaron Fox is going absolutely bananas, but his usage is going absolutely bananas. And his turnovers has jumped just as a result of having the ball that much. He had 4 the first game of this setup and 6 the second game. Now he's going against Dyson Daniels, who just had his streak of 6 plus, let me repeat that, 6+ steals a game broken. He had 4 straight games of that.
Yep.
Like you said, the nickname already absolutely elite, the Great Barrier Thief. I mean, he is so good, and he is definitely going to get the matchup on Fox. That for Atlanta, it's completely like throw your only really good point of attack defender onto De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox has mega usage. Combine the two. We don't have these numbers yet. I think Dyson Daniels, he broke the streak today. He did go under 2.5. So I'm thinking they might have him around that 2.5 number, juiced over a little bit. And then the Fox is about 3.5 assists. So I think if you can combine those, they're going to be insanely correlated. Now, maybe the books are going to know this isn't like, it's a little bit in plain sight, but I think at least worth trying it. And you could play them separately. I think it's a fun little angle for what should be actually a pretty fun game, I think, on Monday.
Love it. This is great. I love this cap. This is absolutely a phenomenal cap, Jim Turvey, even without having the numbers. This is really good. Joe Dellera, let's go to yours. Give me your breakdown.
So I'm not trying to be a total hater here, but Joel Embiid under 24.5 points. He's only scored 13 and 20 points in his 2 games this season. He's seen his minutes go up from 26 to 32. But like even last year, for the most part, we were seeing him play like upper 30s into the low 40s. Like he was playing a ton of minutes, right? Towards the end of the season, but like generally at least like 35 minutes a game. I don't really know if we're there yet, but even besides that, this has been an awful matchup for him against Bam Adebayo. For like, he fried Goga Batazde the other day. And then they were just like, nope, you're done. That's it. You're good. But he actually wound up scoring almost all of his points at the beginning of the game. So it does make me still wonder, just like, how is he feeling? What's the knee feel like? What's the situation? But even besides all of that, on like normal minutes loads against Bam Adebayo and the Miami Heat, he just is not hitting this number. He's gone under this line in 7 of 9 games against Bam Adebayo over the last couple of seasons. His only overs are at 27 and 29 points. So we have like a pretty good margin, and he's averaging 22.3 points per game in those matchups. Now we have the situation, obviously Maxi's hurt, but McCain looks unbelievable, getting a ton of run, getting a lot of minutes, getting a lot of usage. And then Paul George also presumably playing, going to absorb a lot of usage, going to absorb a lot of minutes, going to absorb a lot of shots. And it's a little bit of a different Philadelphia team, admittedly, there, right? But the matchup on the interior is still pretty much the same, where you're dealing with Bam Adebayo. And this has just been a very tough matchup for him. Bam's a pretty physical player. He's a great one-on-one defender. And just historically, when on a full minutes load, Embiid wasn't hitting this number. We were betting this religiously last season at like 31.5, 32.5. And it was going under like literally every time against Miami. And that was on a full minutes load when Embiid was scoring basically more than a point per minute. And he's not doing that now this year. He doesn't even look really the same at all, except for the couple minutes to start the game where Goga Batazde was on the other side. So to me, the 24.5, I think it's just too low. And I think it's a number that people are going to be looking at and saying, we need to bet this over. It's too low for Joel Embiid. But on my, like the way that I'm looking at this, I think it's just a little bit still too high against Bam Adebayo in this particular matchup.
Okay. So he went under this last year versus Miami too?
Basically, so last year there was one game where he scored 29 and another one where he scored 27. But his lines last year were like 31.5, 32.5. So like this year, obviously it's different because of the injury and everything. But like basically he just doesn't hit this. Like he never hits his points prop against Miami.
Okay. Because my concern is that he's gotten much better about Bam. Like Bam used to absolutely just fucking destroy him because he couldn't handle it. And Joel's gotten so much better, but your cap is, this is not that Embiid, this is injured Embiid.
Yeah, so, it's partially like injured Embiid, minutes limit Embiid, and even then, right? Like even last year, even the games that you were like, oh, he's cooking Bam, like he's playing great, he's scoring a lot of points, whatever, he still wasn't hitting 30. And like that was when he was scoring like 35 points a game. So he still wasn't even hitting that threshold. So the way I'm looking at it, reduced minutes load, it's still a similar matchup. And then there's other offensive weapons around him that they didn't really have last season either. So the rebounds are there, the assists are there against Bam, and I don't really want any part of those, especially given the knee. But the points I'm totally willing to take in what I think is a harder matchup for him.
Okay, I'm going to take Jim. Really quickly, give me the cap on Jakob Poeltl.
Thank you. Yeah, my computer might die in the middle of this, so apologies if this cuts out. So Jakob Poeltl, points and rebounds. I'm looking at the over here against Indiana on Monday. Centers have been absolutely eating against the Pacers all year, and Poeltl's off of his 2 best games of the season. He's actually having a career year in general. He's averaging 16 and 12. Last 2 games, he went 25 and 18 against Detroit, and then 35 and 12 against Boston. We've been hitting the Bam ladders against Indy. The centers in general are just doing really well. The points in the paint is definitely a thing you can get against the Pacers. It was 22.5 for Poeltl last game. That's a really tough matchup against Boston. My guess is this is way higher just because of the Pacers defense and the pace they play at. So this might even come out in like the 25.5 range. Keep an eye in the app though. I'll load something up. I'm guessing Poeltl rebounds and points is going to be one of my favorite looks tomorrow though.
Love it.
Great look. Real quickly, I will do the over in Rockets Bucks. People think that this is a hardcore defensive matchup. It does face 2 top 10 defenses, but these 2 teams are better offensively than you think. Houston is 12th offensively, and Milwaukee's 14th. And they're starting to like tick in the right direction. Milwaukee's still losing, but they're getting better. Also, when you face a tough defense like this, you know what they do? They run. Giannis is going to run a lot. They don't have a wing defender outside of Tari Eason to be able to kind of stand up to and defend him. So I think this is actually going to be a faster paced game, and I will go ahead and say that this is going to wind up being an overplay at 219. If you wake up and this is 221, if I'm wrong on the movement, or if I'm right on the movement and this is 221, no play. 220 is probably my cutoff for this, but I do like it at 219 if it moves the other direction. The other one that I like very much in this spot is the Golden State Warriors of the Los Angeles Clippers. The Warriors are 85%. I'm sorry, they are 75% on the road this season. No, they are 85% again, 0.7% ATS on the road this season. Clippers only 500 on the road. And here's the kicker here. The Warriors, when they have more than 1 day of rest, they're on 2 days rest here, and they're on the road 5-1 since the start of last season ATS, while the Clippers are 4-5 at home when they're on the second night of a back-to-back. Rest advantage, Warriors are really good. I've hated what I've seen from the Clippers lately. I will lay the points with the Golden State Warriors on the road versus the Clippers in a game that they just habitually get up for. Like they love beating the shit out of this team. I don't know why, but they just love killing this team. So I'll lay the 2.5 of the Warriors here. And that's going to do it for best bets. My thanks to David Payne, Brady Rubino, and the video crew getting this up at youtube.com/the Action Network. David Payne's the best. Hope he feels better with sinus infection. My thanks to Jim Turvey from Roto Grinders. Check out his projections daily and best picks over there. Joe Dellera's in the Action Network app. Make sure to follow Action new account, the Parlay Express, in the app. We'll see you guys again tomorrow for best bets for a huge Celtics Cavaliers game. Till then, let's get buckets.